just go ahead and take questions. And just for today, if you don't mind, just kind of identify yourself and your publication so we can begin to learn some names. That would be great. Dave?
David Cloninger with This Date. Chuck, just how did this process start? When did Frank first reach out to you, and how did the process of getting you here develop?
Well, you know, first I'll start by saying I've known Coach Martin for a long time. We've been friends for about 20 years, and I was really, really rooting for him and the program when they made their run throughout the NCAA tournament. And we had a mutual friend who just kind of connected us indirectly. And it was kind of hey, I was just on the phone with Chuck. And with Frank, with me, it was like, hey, I was just on the phone with Frank. One of those deals. And then as we continued to talk, we realized, well, you know, Matt moved on to take the Austin Peay job, and obviously I was looking for a job. I was in transition. So that's kind of how it initiated, just kind of a mutual friend talking to both of us indirectly and mentioning to one another, hey, I just talked to Chuck yesterday, vice versa. Hey, I just spoke to Frank yesterday.
Questions, guys? Michael and I both have mics. Kyle?
Kyle Heck with Spurs and Feathers. What does it mean to you to come in here, you know, off the cusp of their best season in school history and try to help Frank build off of that?
Well, you know, I feel really fortunate, number one, to be a part of Frank's staff and the program that he's built here at South Carolina. I mean, it's incredible what they've been able to do over the last few years. You know, it's hard. This is my 18th year, if I'm not mistaken, of college basketball. So it's hard to get to the Final Four. I mean, this is a challenging thing, and for him to do it in such a short window here at South Carolina really is incredible. So I feel fortunate to, be a part of his staff, because I know he's a great person, and that's really, really important to me, being able to work with someone who's a tremendous person. B, I think he's gained a reputation over the years of being a tremendous teacher, communicator. And then obviously the timing of it is pretty good, right? I mean, if this is a perfect time for me to join the staff, I think, and be here with Frank at South Carolina.
Here in the back, Joe Gorcho, WIS-TV here in Columbia. Coach, what type of coach are the Gamecocks getting in you in terms of how you're going to fit in with Frank and just how you'll help add to the culture that's been established here over the last 5 seasons?
You know, that's a good question. I've been fortunate enough to work with some really good coaches and be a part of really good teams over the years. So I've learned a little bit from the different places I've been at. And first and foremost, I will take Coach Martin's lead in what he wants from me and what he needs from me. And but I think in general, you're going to find a guy that's I still feel like I'm youthful and energetic and enthusiastic. And you know, when you're involved in college athletics at this level, it's a long year, particularly when you're winning. You guys experienced it. You know, Frank Martin and his team went to the Final Four. It's a long season, so you better have some energy and some enthusiasm to you. So I think I'll be able to bring some of that to this group. I think coaching for 18 years on a collegiate level and doing it at different places. I've had some success in league play, in the NCAA tournament, you know, Final Four and all that stuff. So I think I'll be able to help some of the younger guys who, although they're joining a program that just went to the Final Four, they haven't played in the Final Four. They haven't played a collegiate game yet. So I think helping those guys manage expectations and helping those guys grow and develop every day is something that I think I can add.
Matt Dowell, Watch Fox. Coach Martin, you said he's such a great teacher. He always preaches that he wants to make them great basketball players, but also better men. How important is that in your coaching process as well?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I think Frank and I connect so much, because I think, you know, we're coaches, but really we're teachers is what we do. And our classroom is the basketball court. Our classroom is the film room. And, you know, I've got 3 kids of my own. I've got a 19-year-old daughter, I got a 14-year-old boy, and a 12-year-old boy. So, you know, when we walk into parents' homes and we say, hey, we want to coach your son for 4 years, we want to teach your son, we're essentially taking on a secondary role of a parent. And when you have your own kids, you have a better feel and a better understanding of what that responsibility is. So that's also important to me, you know, and I think that's one of the many things that Frank and I have in common. We want to coach, obviously we want to win big, but we also want to create this relationship with these kids 10 years from now, when they become men and they have their own families, that we still have a great relationship.
Chuck, you're a New York guy. Frank has always recruited New York. How much will that play into your future duties? Will that kind of be your territory in terms of recruiting?
You know, again, we have not, everything's happened so quickly. You know, I've only been on campus, I think, 6 days, so we haven't sat down in depth and talked about my recruiting responsibilities. But as you mentioned, I am from New York, and Frank has done a successful job over the years recruiting that area. I'm sure that's going to be a place that we're going to hit. And he has already, you know, before I even got here. Rakim obviously is from Brooklyn, and he's got Chris, who went to school at Roselle Catholic in New Jersey. He had a kid at Kansas State by the name of Jordan Enrique, if I'm not mistaken. So Frank has already done that without me. I would like to think that I can add to that with some of my contacts and some of my roots back east.
Yeah, Coach, just kind of following up on that in terms of recruiting, that's always big when it comes to college athletics in terms of bringing what you have to the table. Is it something when you switch to a program and you've been at different spots, do you recruit differently for different schools depending on maybe what Coach Frank Martin's vision and the type of players he wants in the program? And do you think that will change from where your last stop was till now in terms of how you'll go about recruiting?
Well, I think the work ethic never stops regardless of where you're at, right? You're going to work just as hard, if not harder. I do think that it does change a bit in terms of what the head coach wants and what he feels is a priority for the program. So depending on what Frank Martin wants and what he's emphasizing is what I'll kind of take as a lead. But it does change a bit depending on the culture. You know, we recruited a certain type of kid at Indiana, and I recruited a certain type of kid at Marist and UMass and all the different places I've been at. And I'm sure that's not going to change here. There's going to be certain things that Coach Martin really, really prioritizes, and based on that, I'll take his lead and then move forward.
Two-part question. John Del Bianco with thebigspur.com. What do you know about I know you said you've only been on campus for 6 days, but what do you know about the team you're inheriting, the players specifically, and what's your grasp on the SEC, the new league you'll be coaching in?
As you mentioned, I've only been on campus a few days, so my interaction with the kids has been limited. Some of the guys have been off campus, so Chris, for example, I know is not here. But first and foremost, they seem like really good kids. I think that's really, really important when you're trying to continue to win at the level that Coach Martin wants to. You got to have guys that are good people, that are willing to buy in, that are hard workers, and that's the first impression that I got from these guys. I'll get to know them a little bit better in terms of their skill set and ability on the court the more that I work with them. But from all indication, the limited amount of film that I've watched and some of the games that I've watched throughout the NCAA tournament, it's a really, really good group of kids returning, and I think they've got a bright future individually and collectively. Obviously, the SEC is a tremendous league, and it seems to be getting better every year in terms of the coaching, the type of athletes, how competitive the league becomes. So I've never worked in the SEC. I've worked in a bunch of different leagues, the Big East, the Big Ten, the Atlantic 10. But this is my first time in the SEC, so I'm looking forward to how it's done here, how the style of play is different, the coaching philosophies are different. So I'm looking forward to that new challenge.
Colin Taylor, Gamecock Central. Frank Martin talks a lot about fit, whether with players and with coaches. How do you feel like you fit culture-wise into this program and kind of with Frank as a whole?
Well, I've been fortunate, again, to work for some guys that have carved out their own niche at different programs. And so I think coming here to South Carolina with Frank, it's similar to some of the other places I've been at. You know, hardworking, defensive-minded, gritty, tough kids who kind of feel like they've got a chip on their shoulder. And for the most part throughout my career, those are the type of kids who've I've coached, and those are the type of programs that I've been around. And you know, I've been fortunate to be around McDonald's All-Americans and help recruit some of those guys. But I think the chip on your shoulder, the toughness, the grit that this program and this team has is similar to some of the teams that I've been a part of in the past.
Hey, Coach, Heath Klein, 107.5 The Game. Have you got any stories? Have you ever crossed paths on the recruiting trail, had a battle with Coach Martin or anybody on the staff for a kid or anything like that? Any particular battles stand out from the past?
Yeah, I mean, years ago, this is going way back. This is, I don't know, maybe 17, 16 years ago. I get a phone call from a coach in Miami, and he says, I got a point guard for you. At the time, I'm at Drexel University working for Bruiser Flint. And our program is starting to take, you know, some major steps in that league. And I get a phone call, and it says, hey, we got a kid named J.J. Barrera. He's a kid from Puerto Rico. He's here in Miami. He's got a chance to be pretty good. So I went down there a few times and got a chance to see him and watch him and walked away really impressed with his potential. And then, you know, like a week later, they told me, you know, hey, Northeastern is involved, which I knew immediately was Frank Martin, right? He's from Miami. And at that point, I knew, I was like, man, this is going to be a tough battle because Frank has some really, really strong ties in Miami. And my gut told me, like, we're not getting this kid. Like, I think he likes me. I think he likes the idea of Drexel University, but I'm not beating Frank Martin in Miami for this kid. And sure enough, I was right. He went to Northeastern, and, you know, they had great years there, and then he became an NBA player and an NBA champion. Yeah, that's one of my Frank Martin recruiting battles. I knew I wasn't going to win that battle. Yeah.
Chuck, since you've joined on, have you spoken with Coach Calipari? And all having worked for him in the past.
Yeah, I have. Cal was great. You know, when the news got out that I was going to join the staff here, he was one of the first guys to call me and reach out and congratulate me. And then the first thing he said was congratulations. And then the second thing immediately was so complimentary of Frank, of the job that he's done here, what he's building here at South Carolina, and the enormous amount of respect that Cal has for Frank. And then more importantly, I think he emphasized you're going to work with a really, really good guy, which, you know, I've worked for Cal, so I think he kind of knows who I am and what I'm comfortable with and who I'm comfortable being around. Those were the two things he said. Hey, congrats, it's awesome. He's a really good coach, tremendous respect, but hey, he's a great person.
Reggie Anderson, News 19 here in Columbia. How have you evolved as a coach from your days as a head coach and also working up there at that fishbowl in Bloomington? And what those experiences will you bring here to Columbia?
That's a really good question. I'm so much better today as a coach than I was 8 years ago or 9 years ago when I first became a head coach at Marist. You know, it's a daunting task when you go from assistant coach to head coach. There's so many decisions that you make every day. There's so many people that count on you, and you can't really describe that until you go through it. So, you know, I've developed, I think, not dramatically, but I've improved I've improved somewhat in terms of coaching and dealing with people, interaction with the team and kids and the leadership that's necessary in that position. So I think my experience as a head coach at Marist for sure has made me a better assistant. And I think my experience at Indiana, where, as you mentioned a few seconds ago, where you're under the microscope every single day, has certainly made me a better coach, a better leader on and off the court.
Any more questions for Chuck? Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you.